Hey, Fandroids, welcome back to the Weekly Stack. Still workshopping the name, and I've been doing this for what, like 3 months? Anyway, I did recently change this to being a podcast as well on the YouTube channel. I don't consider this the same as the podcast that I used to do with Rick Bretschneider, who was doing a fantastic job. It just got really hard with, I'll be honest, some mental health issues on my part and emotional health issues on my part. So, for those who miss that podcast, because occasionally people do ask me, I say there's a lot. There's like 17 years or so worth, and it was good stuff. It just didn't work for where I am in my life right now. Probably too much information for what you came here for, which was comics. Every week, I go to House of Secrets in Burbank, California. That's my local shop. And I pick up the books that are held for me behind the counter, as well as looking through the shelves to see what else there might be. I come back here, I read some, I put some off on a stack, which I promise again I'm going to organize so I can catch up because there's some really good stuff I know I like that I haven't been up to date on, like the Ultimate Universe. I'm behind. I will catch up. So anyway, and then I go through and say what I've read, what I bought, and why it was worth my attention, or I thought it was worth my attention. And maybe you'll agree, and maybe you'll disagree, and I'm fine with that. Please let me know. All right. So first up, talked about this one many times. This is Batman number 6 of the new Batman. I don't know what volume they consider it. I keep forgetting to look there. This is, of course, by Matt Fraction. Matt Fraction. Jorge Jimenez is the artist. Tomeo Mori is colors. Beautiful colors. Clayton Cowles with Jorge Jimenez as the letterers, and Jimenez and Mori are also doing the cover. There are many variant covers with other hot artists. I think I have the main one, which does demonstrate how great Jorge Jimenez is in art. And this is kind of my favorite thing, where it sort of looks like how it was in the 70s when I was reading. Your mileage may vary. It's a reason I've liked Jim Lee all along, even though I haven't always liked the stories that were being illustrated by Jim Lee. Yeah, I'm not a fan of Hush. There, I've said it. Anyway, I am a fan of Matt Fraction's work on this book. The only thing that's bugging me right now is that it's starting to devolve into what I always get upset about when a new writer comes in and does something with Batman, which is, let's go through all the supervillains. And at first it was charming because they were kind of one-offs, and now it's a continuing story. Whether the editorial team decided that's what it had to be, I don't know. But it's a little harder to get in, even though it's fun, and did something interesting with Tim Drake in this issue. So maybe. Anyway, okay, so Batman number 6. I'm still buying it. I'm still enjoying it. Just not as much as I did from the out of the gate debut. That's all right. Bought a one shot because the Creeper was on the variant cover. This is Superman Chains of Love number 1. The story is called Creepers, and the creative team writer is Leah Williams, the artist is Ig Guara, the colorist is Fabi Marquez, and the letterer is Dave Sharp. So it's kind of to me at least, a new version of what the Creeper is in the All-In universe. There's some interesting stuff there. I think I like Livewire. If I'm remembering correctly, she may have actually been introduced in Superman the Animated Series. So I love that if I'm right, that she carried over. But anyway, I am digging this. I dug this, though. The art by Iguara was a little bit not to my taste, but that's all right. They are in love with each other. The Creeper and Jack Ryder aren't necessarily aware, or Jack Ryder isn't necessarily aware of his subconscious becoming the Creeper. That's sort of interesting. I liked it when it was simpler and he just looked like the Creeper, and what the hell? That guy was insane. But anyway, it is fun. There is a backup tale. Of course, when I tell you that this is a Bizarro story, you might think that Dan Slott was the writer, and yes, he is. The artist is Rossi Campe. Colorist is Trish Mulvihill. Letterer is Dave Sharp. And this is called Bill Zarro's World, and it's a funny story about Bizarro and a person working for the Daily Planet named Bill Zarro changing places. So cute. At the end, it says it's the beginning, but I think that's because it's a Bizarro joke. I don't know that I necessarily need to see any more of it, although it would be interesting to see how the Bizarro version of Bill Zorro might function in the Daily Planet. We only get a little glimpse. Um, so here, and getting into the DCKO, and it's not the only one I read this week, but I'll start with this. Night Fight number 4, Like Father, Like Son. Joshua Williamson is the writer, and Dan Mora is the artist, with Triona Farrell on colors, and Alfred Wayne on just the one first page. Tom Napolitano is the letterer. This wraps up kind of interestingly by showing, not the first time that a writer has explored Batman in this way, showing what if everything actually goes right in the future. And it's, really cool. You get a potential grandson for Bruce Wayne and how he handles that. I think it was back in JLA. I think Joe Kelly wrote it, where there was that idea of if Bruce Wayne and Diana Prince actually, or Princess Diana, matched up with each other, and this is no spoiler because this is like 20 years ago, she decided to not pursue a relationship with Bruce Wayne because she felt the world needed Batman more than Bruce Wayne needed to be happy, which is kind of odd. And I think Tom King picked up a little bit on that with the Batman Catwoman, which was messed up by editorial. And I get it. Again, these are toys that must remain eternal. It's very hard to tell a story in which something really truly changes. They do it because they count on everybody now not really reading the comics that much, or again, like me, people like me liking just storylines that say this. So anyway, there's what does it look like if Bruce Wayne has a happy life, and everything moves forward with the Robins stepping up. There are a lot of Robins. Anyway, so I enjoyed that. And it goes back into DCKO mainstream. We'll see there. Planet of the Apes versus the Fantastic Four, number 1. I was a little disappointed to discover this was not Dave Walker writing, because I know that David is a huge Planet of the Apes fan, and he's done some really great work for Marvel. But actually, the writer is Josh Trujillo, who I also think is a great writer. So, I'm okay. Artist is Andrea DeVito. Color artist is Eric Arciniega. And the letter is VC's Joe Caramagna. And the cover artists are Greg Land and Rochelle Rosenberg. So it's not exactly that it's a big difference between cover and insides, but as much as I like the aesthetics of a Greg Land cover, there is something that's, well, looks a little porny even with the apes. But what I really did like within is that the artwork, uh, you know, carries, that's DeVito doing. Zira looks like Kim Hunter playing Zira. It's kind of impressive because again, it's under the mask, and Cornelius looks sort of like Roddy McDowell. And yeah, this is basically back to the original Planet of the Apes. You've got General Ursus, you've got Dr. Zaius, who does not look like Dana Gould, and and then Cornelius and Zira, and there's a fun parallel with the Fantastic Four there. Um, I suspected when they first announced this that it would have something to do with the Red Ghost. It does have something to do with the Red Ghost. That's no spoiler. That's right up top. I like the kind of structure that Josh Trujillo put on this. Look, this isn't going to be anything in continuity in reality that's going to impact, but it's a fun crossover that I knew once 20th Century Fox was bought by Disney, eventually Marvel would get around to it. I mean, they did, revive their Planet of the Apes books, and they've done a couple of miniseries, and that's cool. But the crossovers have to happen because, we love them. I get it. I get it. And obviously, I love them because I bought it. JSA number 16. This is year 1, chapter 4, and really putting a lot of emphasis on the Spectre for the origin. But let me once again get to who are the creators on this book. Writer is Jeff Lemire. The artist is Gavin Guidry. The colors are Luis Guerrero, and the letterer is Steve Wands. At this point, as a long time JSA fan, uh, all the lore I know. You're rarely going to surprise me with who the villain is. I'm Not surprised so much as by the revelation at the end of this issue of like, oh yeah, of course. But it is fun to see this much emphasis on the Spectre with a bit of a redo, going back to, you know, the best to me Spectre stories ever are John Ostrander and Mandrake's run, which was just done in collected in an omnibus, and that's good stuff. And nothing in this really violates that, but it's also like taking some of that. Jeff Lemire is taking what was great about that series and retconning it back into, I think, this portrayal of Jim Corrigan and the Spectre in 1940. I think that's the year they're setting this, but it's really cool to see characters. I like the Al Pratt version of the Atom is interesting. There's some stuff from All Star Squadron, and I know some people find this controversial. I don't know why, but I thought one smart thing that I think it was John Byrne that did this was that Hippolyta had, you know, Diana's mother had spent time in man's world during World War II as Wonder Woman. Um, I like that as a solution. I like that here. It's back. That it's Hippolyta. You see the Hawks. You see Green Lantern. You see Sandman, the Golden Age Sandman, which, you know, he's been portrayed often as Wesley Dodds is kind of a bit of a schlub who, you know, still fights crime, and I love that. And that's kind of where he is here. The later Kirby and Simon version, the purple and gold, doesn't make as much sense as the guy in the gas mask. So this is just fun. I'm loving it. There we go. And this one, DCKO, let me revisit. This is, I'm torn. I'm honestly torn by this one because this was announced at New York Comic Con. They didn't say how it was going to happen. I guess they just said there was going to be a boss battle. Thus, all illusions that this is not a video game brought to comics are gone here by even calling it this. And why am I disappointed? Let's get to the creators first. Jeremy Adams, decent script. Ronan Cliquet, Carmine Di Domenico, as always, please correct my pronunciation correctly, you know, politely. Kieran McCown and Pablo M. Collar, art. The hi-fi is colors. I don't know who that really is. And Tom Napolitano is letterer. There's a special thanks to Scott Snyder and Josh Williamson, because I'm sure that they are, you know, consulted a lot in this. And I'm gonna give this crossover credit that DCKO, I think, has had a lot fewer continuity uh these crossovers often have. This one doesn't seem to have quite as many, and the cover's by Jamal Campbell, who is an artist I really like. But what this is that was uh love it and disappointing at the same time was this is the comic that has Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Samantha the bear from Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, Homelander from The Boys, of course, characters from Mortal Kombat, Sub Zero, and Annabelle, and Vampirella, and let's see if there's anybody that I'm missing in here. Red Sonja, and the my suspicion is that they either could not negotiate as long an appearance as I think fans would want. Though this was $4.99, it's, you know, kind of a standard comic length, maybe a little longer. I wanted to see a little more. Now I'm going to grant you that my favorite part of this was the Joker versus Annabelle, and um, probably less is more with Annabelle. The less you know, and there are a couple of moments that actually made me grin as they fight, because if you can call it a fight, because, you know, there's a gag about she's still a doll, right? Isn't she? Anyway, that the Annabelle is my favorite part of the Conjuring universe, so I'm there. I was down with that. Superman versus Homelander, you see big, you know, big fights, but they all kind of just blur together, you know. So that Batwoman versus Vampirella, you barely see what's going on in that. And so I think we just got, you know, little glimpses, and they're mostly setting up for sight gags, Lex Luthor versus Samantha the Bear does not go the way you might think. It's also, I'm not sure that out of Patrick Horvath's hands that she's written the way that she actually is in the regular book. So, it's okay. These kinds of things happen. Sabrina, you know, you're not going to make her evil, right? So anyway, uh, it's a fun book. It's not just as good as I thought it was going to be, and not as long as I thought it was going to be. I would say if you had made this like a 48 page or a 52 page, whatever they're considering those big lengths now, I'd have probably spent $8 on that. $5. I'm not sure if I felt that, uh, you know, um, rewarded for that. And I probably could have seen a whole issue devoted to Joker versus Annabelle. And again, that's even knowing, if they'd given me that, I probably would have been groused like, it's too much. I know too much about Annabelle. No, I don't. I mean, that's what's funny about the character. So enough about the evil doll. But you'll always get me with that. That's why one of my favorite Batman villains is the ventriloquist in Scarface. So here we are now on the things that I have not yet read and I need to catch up. I got to find my issue 3 of the Synthetics, or just Synthetics, Volume 1, which is J. Michael Straczynski and Tony Parker on art, Kerry Strachan on coloring, and Steve Dutro on letters. And this is hard sci-fi from Dark Horse Comics, and this is J. Michael Straczynski playing back in, just telling stories he wants to tell. And of course, and this is not just because I do consider Tony Parker a friend, but I first knew Tony Parker as a fan, loving his work. I got to interview him years ago for This Damn Band with Paul Cornell. And it's just been really gratifying to see a person who I saw being like just a great guy and fun to talk to, good person, etc. And the career growing steadily, and every year just who he's racking up getting to work with, including himself, because Medusa was a great graphic novel. Um, it's cool. So I always got to give, full disclosure, when I feel like, oh, I could message somebody and they'll answer right back. My friend Rob Worley and I have talked about that. Like there are people that no, they will not message back anymore, and that's okay because they got maybe too big, or we just grew in different directions. That's okay. Ultimate Endgame issue 2. I'm in here. I'm not in here. I'm into this. I'm just behind, and the creative team. Dennis Camp, I think I mentioned in the last video how Dennis Camp is doing some great stuff and has one of the books coming from Vertigo, and there's a preview in the back of one of these. Oh, for Bleeding Hearts is the Vertigo book that Dennis Camp is writing, and it looks kind of interesting, a weird zombie variation. I wasn't going to pick it up, but then I read the preview in the back of one of the DC books, and I thought, okay, I might check this out. Artists are Terry and Rachel Dodson from What's Outside the Dome, and Jonas Scharf is Inside the Dome. Colorists are Terry Dodson and Edgar Delgado, and the letterer is VC's Corey Petty. I do want to say the Dodsons and Jonas Scharf, what a combo, because the Dodsons, oh my gosh, Adventure Man, but that's just the one that comes off the top of my head. They've been working for years doing beautiful work, and Jonas Scharf have been working on Conan, and damn, he's impressive. So anyway, moving on, the Absolute Superman, I should probably just go through, run through these. Absolute Superman number 16. Hey, there's a hawk. And I think they're going to come into DCKO very soon. Absolute Green Lantern. I'm not necessarily going to go down to the creators because I just want to mention them that I got to catch up and do the stack. The Department of Truth. I think maybe I could go ahead and read this. I don't think I've missed any, but I just wanted to be sure as I go through stacks because this book is so trippy and I still think so crucial in a world where we are arguing with AI, like what is real? What are we seeing as real? We have the news. I'm not going to lie about this, man. Our government is bald-facedly lying to us. We see the videos, or we think we do, and then they tell us that's not what we saw. And that's kind of what James Tynion the Fourth has been screaming about with this book for 6 years. Anyway, Martin Simmons is the artist. Great stuff. The letter is Aditya Bidikar, and the designer is Dylan Todd. I'd be intrigued someday to get to talk to the designer. What do you do for this book? Which does clearly, I mean, it is well designed, but I say that nebulously. Also in the backup, set in this same universe, I guess, there's this sort of thing about Elvis within the Department of Truth. Suspicious Minds Part 3, Scott Snyder. Joshua Hickson is the artist, and the colorist Jordi Belair, and Aditya Bidikar is the letterer keeping it all together, right? So it continues here. And if you have not read this book, when it first came out, I raved about this, and I still tell people it's one of the most important books. And I don't say that lightly. And I realize it might sound even silly when I'm talking about a comic book, but it's one of the most important books you could read to just kind of make your brain go, what is the power of belief when our entire national split is being fueled by people believing firmly different things, and that one set of beliefs that have been driving a wedge in our country and the world uh, has not only been exposed as actually being true, but true of the other side. And yet there are still people that don't believe this. So catch up on Department of Truth. Tell me what you think. Let's try to stay polite about this, because I know it's tough. Um, yeah, I don't want to get in further because you know what? My last thing is the magazine. I buy Conan the Barbarian from Titan on a in trade paperbacks because then I can just go through. I love what they're doing with it. They made me a Conan fan. I was not. I mean, I read a few of the novels back in high school, and oddly enough, have Arnold Schwarzenegger signed my copy of the first book in paperback. And the Savage Sword of Conan is fun, not funny, because it jumps around all over the place. But we've got Chris Ryle. Hey, good to see you, Chris. And artist Gabriel Rodriguez doing a Conan story. Brand Mac Morn, I guess just a text story from Fabian Nicieza, prose. So, I like that the Savage Sword does stuff like this. Titan is going multimedia, all IP. And oh no, I see this. There's a Solomon Kane novel I haven't bought. I got to catch up. As I mentioned, I'm trying to, read a book a week that's not comics, and then I see something like this and go, damn it, I still have a Conan novel by my bedside. There's a Red Sonja by Gail Simone I need to read, and now this. I love Solomon Kane. El Borak, who I really like, Patrick Zurcher and artist Mirko Kolak. I love Patrick Zurcher's work. I've become a real fan of him as a writer, where I was a fan of him as an artist before. And my only downside to Patrick Zurcher just kicking ass as a writer is I think he has less time to draw when I love his art. So anyway, I have never been disappointed by an issue of Savage Sword of Conan. I don't buy these in trade paperbacks or omnibuses or whatever. I buy them individually because I know I can jump around. It's rare that there's a continued story, but I get a taste of so many Robert E. Howard creations. And like in the case of El Barak, until this revival by Titan, that's a character I didn't even know existed, and he's really kind of cool. So there. All right, that is it for this week. Of course, on Wednesday I will go again and get more books from House of Secrets. Maybe I will go someplace else as well. And I want to throw in that a story book I've covered before, The Beauty, from Ignition Press, just revived and reprinted, as well as new issues going forward, that has been on Hulu for I think the last 4 weeks. I think it's a Fox show, FX show, and it's actually though different from the comic, of course, It's a pretty good adaptation. My wife and I have spent some time this weekend uh, binging through a few episodes, and we're both hooked. And different enough, and that's even saying I know where the comic went. I'm not 100% sure I know where the show is going, and I'm happy to see when something like that happens. That it's a great adaptation for TV, and it's cool. It has some more things to say. And again, the more we are being exposed to about what's really been going on, man, I sound like a paranoid conspiracy theorist, and that makes me angry too. Uh, I like to consider myself rational, and the things we're having to deal with on a daily basis are insane. And that's why I retreat to aliens with superpowers being good for us. So remind you people, use your powers for good. Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon.